Hi, today I'm going to talk about the scanner class so we can get input from the keyboard from users. We can ask them to enter numbers or anything else. And a separate topic that is in the same Word document is how do I format my output to line up in columns and to print out specific values in particular ways. This video assumes that you have read the Word document posted on this assignment already. So if you haven't done that, pause the movie and go ahead and take a look at that. What I'm going to do is just walk you through some code, and you can see that there's quite a lot of code that I'm going to comment out as we play with different things. So it grabs some ideas from that particular Word document. So Scanner is a class that is needed anytime that you are going to get input from the keyboard. And it has some pickiness things about it. And the syntax to declare a new scanner object, and the scanner class is defined already in Java. I'm going to make a new scanner and I'm going to call it input. And it's an object, and so we use the keyword new, and what a scanner object accepts is system.in, which means that it's getting a value from the keyboard. So here we're just going to grab some ints. We're going to create some ints and a double and boolean, and we're going to play with having the scanner get the information that I type in from the keyboard. I have a good output statement right here that talks about what I'm expecting the user to do. So if you have no prompting statement, then how is the user going to know what to do? So very specifically, I want them to enter an integer, then a double, and then a Boolean value. And there are some pickinesses about scanner, so I want them to enter a single space after each value and then push return. I have already created the variables up here, and now I'm going to fill them up from what the user types. I ask the user to do an integer first, then a double, then a Boolean, and so I ask for them down here in that same order. You can see that input is the scanner object. With the scanner object input, I'm asking it to invoke a method called nextInt, and like it sounds, it grabs an integer. It grabs that integer from the keyboard and it assigns it num1. When I ask the user to put some white space, a single space, between each value, the scanner class knows to go to the end of the white space and grab the next thing. So I ask for three things at once. The next thing is a double, and so I assign that to big num. And similarly, I type a true or false, and the scanner object invokes next Boolean and assigns it to is true. And all I do in this particular run of the system is just print them back out, echo them out. So I'm going to do it right the first time, and then I'm going to do it wrong and show you what the result would be. So I'm going to enter an integer, single space, double, single space, and then I'll type true. So those went into the corresponding values over here. And I'm going to push enter because it's waiting for me to do something. Right here it was waiting for an int. Right here it was waiting for a double. Right here it was waiting for a Boolean. And as soon as those conditions were satisfied, it was able to go to the next line of code, which, as I said, just echoes what I had. Okay. What if I run it again and it prompts me to do the same thing and I mess up? What if I put 5, true, 2, or yeah, 2, and I push that? It says exception in thread main, and tells me that there is an input mismatch exception. So I'm not sure at this particular point if it's the 5, if it's the true, or if it's the 2, but I know that something about how I gave it, it didn't fit the right data type. We will play with having it get strings and doing things with whole lines of values, but it's not mentioned in the Word document, and I'm not going to do it right now. So I'm just going to comment that out. And remember, the way that you can comment out a lot of code at one time is just to do star slash star and then star slash. Oops. Okay, I'm going to uncomment this out. And this is playing with formatting. We're now going to talk about how you can control how your output is formatted. We talked about println and just print, but now we're going to add printf. So basically, system.out is the same, but instead of print or println, we're going to do printf, and that means to format. You are specifically going to do a format. On several of these demos, I put some digits across the top. I can't do output in a grid manner, like in a bunch of cells or anything. And so basically this is just counting to see where things line up. As in the Word document, you see that there's a string, that there's two parameters in the printf statement, that there's a string that tells you if you are printing out a string, printing out a floating point number, or printing out an integer, like down here. So the first parameter is this string. You separate it by a comma, and then you print out anything you want. This means that it is left justified. It is completely independent of the 10, which says grab 10 cells, left justify it, and print out this string that I have between the quotes. Okay. I did not, between these two printf statements, have a println. So this doesn't tell it to write to a new line, so it doesn't. So on that same line, this says grab 11 spaces. I don't tell you to left justify, so the default is right justify, and then print out price. Okay, print out price \n, except here's what happens. The P, the R, the I, the C, the E, and the colon are regular characters that make up the string. But we learned about in escape sequence, this is a specific single character, and that's how it's treated in the printf statement. So this character manifests itself by wrapping to the next line, but it takes up a space out of these 11. So let's just run it and just look at name and price and pay attention to the spacing up here, which is 20. So I'm going to run it. All we're doing is we're paying attention to this relative to, I guess, both of these lines relative to how much space is there. So name was left justified because we put that minus. It prints out everything, but then what it does is it goes to the end of the 10 right here, goes to the end of the 10, and it says, okay, I'm done with that section. Right here says grab 11 spaces and print out this with the default, also print out this. So if it grabs 11 spaces starting here, it would have gone to an 11th space. Of course, you see that the colon is right at the 20th space, right underneath that 0. So am I incorrect when I said that this takes up a space? I'm not. We asked for spaces that would take it to 21 spaces. 10 here, 11 here. So right here, there's only 20. The 21st space would be right here. Okay, but nothing is printed out because what that does is it wraps to the new line and it goes to soda. Okay, so let's look back here. So right here again, left justify, grab 10 cells, print out soda. Okay, so there we go. So that's that, and that's expected. This one adds the precision. So this, there is no negative, so it's right justified. This says grab 10 cells. Think of a grid paper. But this, because it's printing out a floating point number, don't think of this as the number 10.1. Think of it as 3 specific independent values. There is no negative, so it's right justified. The 10 means grab 10 spaces. The 1 means print 1 place past the decimal point. And you can look over here where it says 10.3. You can see that it rounded correctly. Okay, so it doesn't chop off like an integer casting or anything like this. It is rounded correctly to how many places past the decimal point? 1 place past the decimal point. The 1.50000, right here we right justify. We show 4 places past the decimal point. So even if this only has 2 places, it keeps going to the accuracy that we have set. Okay, so it works with numbers pretty much like you would expect it to work. Here's another example that you can set multiple output flags that are different for 3 different variables. So let's look at this whole thing all together. This line all together, I have 3 flags, and then I have 3 separate values to be output. So this negative 10s means that there's a string. Go left justify, print out the string. 10.2 for a floating point number. The value of my sum, accurate to 2 decimal points, and then this one goes to the third one, which is a single character, which is wrapped to the new line. It can be a string or it can be a character. So you notice that all 3 flags are encased in the single double quotes pair. There's 1 comma, and then here these output values are all separated by 1 comma each. Now I go to the bottom part and I put another counting spacing so that we can see what happens. What happens if my output flag wants to print out a string and doesn't grab enough? This says grab 2 cells and print out Candy. Well, Candy has 5 characters. What happens? The answer, if you look over here, is it just overrides your instruction. It says, oh, they didn't know what they were doing. I'm going to print out the whole thing. Okay, so that's what happens if it's not wide enough. Here is printing out a string again, and then I have an accuracy, 0.12. And I say, okay, well, so what does that mean in a string? I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because white space counts, right? 6, 7, 8. I have 8 characters in this string, and I'm asking it to print out 12 of them. Okay? I don't have 12 of them. I didn't ask it to left justify or right justify, but what happens is I print out all that I do have. I don't have 12, so 12 can't print out. So that's kind of what accuracy in a string means. What happens if I give it 8 and I only need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, because this counts as 1. Okay, if I ask for 8 and I haven't left justified it, so right justification is the default. There's 1 space, there's 2 spaces, and then there's 5 spaces. But then why, if I've asked for 8 over here, does it not have 8 right here? Because for the same reason as it happened above, the new line character takes up one of those spaces. So that's it for today. There's definitely a few more things to practice with the worksheet.